Hi, my name's Tiffany Smith, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this project. The project is called Throned. For me, this is something that has developed very organically and is an extension of another part of my practice that really focuses on like formal staged studio portraits. Like I like to work in the studio a lot and focus on formal portraits and build out sets. So this is something that developed like as an extension of that. I initially, the first time I did this project, I did it as like a fundraiser to raise money to go to South Africa for a conference. And I owned the wicker chair, which it is in these two pictures here. That's like my personal chair. And I did a little pop-up there. And then the people from the Black School saw that work and then invited me to come and do some workshops with them. And that's how I began working with the Black School. Through their programming, they produce the Black Love Fest every year as like a culmination of their programming. Their program partners with middle school and high school programs to create workshops and an after-school program targeted to POC students that focuses on arts and activism. And then to culminate their program every year, they do the Black Love Fest, which they bring together different artists, musicians, vendors, everything into this like free festival that's open to the community. So that's where these projects came from. These pink backgrounds came from this event at the Brooklyn Children's Museum in 2018. And then this one's, we traveled to Houston and did it at Project Row Houses in 2019. And I think like represented around the cube is different instances of me doing this project, partnering with different organizations that usually focus on some degree of community activism or just preserving stories and legacies. Like this image, for example, was a commission by an organization called the New Archive, which is working to archive stories of people that are native to Newark, New Jersey for like 3 generations or more, compiling their stories together. And so they commissioned me to do a project to do a photo booth that day for some work they were presenting. So the families in which they had been working with for months and archiving their stories were able to come in and see those all displayed and then come in and take a family portrait together. So I like to work in that kind of vein. I use the symbol of the wicker back throne chair because it's a familiar fixture in these communities. So it's something that people like relate really easily to. From that's like some kind of point of recognition of the chair and how it shows up. And even if they don't have a direct sort of like experience or line of lineage to it, it's something that I think everyone sort of like feels empowered sitting in this throne chair. So for me, the focus is really on having that moment and giving people that moment to really like just feel really wonderful and empowered and create a really nice formal portrait of themselves or their family. I will say also, this is also, I always mount this project so that it's like free to the community. Like I don't charge people for these portraits. And I just, at this point, try to set it up or at least work with the organization so I'm compensated like for my time and work, but that doesn't have to be passed on to the people who are participating. So everybody can still participate and get a portrait for free. I want these portraits to live in people's homes and to be. I think about how, you think back to like your family members and your grandma, your grandpa, whatever other people like family you may have like you meet only through pictures, right? Like maybe they passed away before you even knew them. And I think a lot about that relationship to the relationship that photography holds to our memory, right? And how it holds those things together. Like I can think right now of particular images of my grandmother or like of my great grandparents that like that's the only way that I really know them. Like I haven't like ever known them in the flesh, So I think that our relationship to that type of portraiture has shifted in like the digital age, where we're creating images in this like mass with a veracity, right? Like just every second we're creating like millions of images. And I think that people don't think as much about like slowing down and doing like formal portraiture in the same kind of way, and holding on to images in that same kind of way, and letting that image like sit in your memory and keep you attached to loved ones in that same way. So those are some of the things I'm trying to do with this project.
Yeah, thank you so much. So any questions for
I got a quick question. Just how, when you set up on your location, like what does that look like for you? Like, do you have a team? Do you have like, how much stuff do you have to carry? Because it looks really super elaborate. And like, just thinking as like, how would you take this out somewhere else?
Yeah.
Into the street? What's that like?
It's been very different every time. And I definitely, like, as I've done it over and over again, I sort of learned different ways to approach it that make it easier for me. Like I said, again, I have to work with the team. Like, it's just like really long and physically exhausting. Like normally when I'm doing it, it's within one day. So it's like the whole thing. So like transporting all the stuff to the location, building the set, setting up the lights, doing the whole day of photographing, breaking down, taking it home, returning the rental truck, like all those little things people don't think about. Or something like this, when I went to Houston, right? Like, then I had to think of what I could source locally and what I could bring with me. So I packed up a bunch of fake plants in my suitcase, like brought those with me, because I took what I could. And then we partnered with a local designer to borrow this chair. Because I also wanted to incorporate things from the local community, right? And then like this plant was borrowed from the guy who had the chair. So that was a live plant that I was able to borrow there. And then I ended up like, I wanted to use a material for the backdrop. I don't know why, I just was like thinking of this gold color and just thought that like the mylar, this is like those mylar like space blankets or whatever that they use to like keep you warm or keep you cold. And I decided to use that as a material because it was like really inexpensive and easily accessible. And could be used, you know, in this way. It would have this reflective effect. I wanted to be able to light it. So, yeah, I kind of just think about just all the different elements of like where I'm going to be, what I have accessible, and like where I can sort of fill in those blanks. And it changes in every place and every iteration. Because like I did this for Photoville on Saturday, and like they built me a whole thing, right? They built one of these and printed one of these vinyl backdrops, and I've never gotten that level of like help and assistance with this. So that's definitely unique, you know. And I had like a whole team there. I've never had that much help doing this project. It's usually like me and one assistant generally. Yeah. Yes.
What is the significance of the greenery? Is it like your outfit and then all the photos? You have a lot of plants and stuff in it. It all seems cohesive.
Yeah.
What is the meaning behind it?
I started using plants a lot as like symbolism in the portraits that I make, because the portraits that I make personally in my practice all connect to like my own identity and my Caribbean heritage, right? And I think there's a lot of information in plants also. I think there's a lot of ways to communicate. I can use plants that are like specifically tropical, and it places you in a certain like location. I think also the way that I use plants as a prop is, and not as much in these as in the other work that I make, but it's definitely intended to be like, I see it like a tourist trap to sort of like lure you in, right? Because it's very evocative and it brings you in. But there's usually like, not so much with these, but in the other ones, there's like a darker sort of like narrative that is present there that I'm trying to unpack. Or not necessarily darker, it's just like more nuanced. It's just like there's more beneath the surface than like, you know, this lush tropical exterior. And I relate that experience to the way that the Caribbean in particular is depicted. And so that's where that metaphor sort of comes from.